Path of Exile is a classic action RPG originally made as the spiritual successor to Diablo 2, because nobody else was doing it at the time, and that spiraled out of control with 10 years of updates. It's free, it's great, there's an overwhelming amount of content to do and an endless ceiling to try and reach. And then on one April Fool's Day we got Path of Exile Royale for a weekend, a comically unbalanced battle royale game mode stapled on with only 1 day of development put in. If you don't know what battle royale game modes are, God, I wish I was you right now. Essentially, games like Fortnite popularized the idea of 100 players go in, everyone finds a loot, and then you die because you were either outplayed or you did something colossally stupid. And that's what Path of Exile Royale added, except it still has Path of Exile's complex underbelly with tons of loot, items that modify how you play, and a bunch of skill gems from the real game. You need experience to level up, which allows you to allocate points into the very complex passive skill tree. You can level up your gems so they become stronger, and if your level's high enough you can equip better items than what you get at the very start. Mix all of that with the frantic pace of being the last one to stay alive, and you can see how people enjoyed this. And after 3 years of overwhelming demand for what might have been the best version of PvP, the developers at Grinding Gear Games, the company responsible for Path of Exile, put in some genuine work into Royale before bringing it back as an out-of-season April Fool's joke. Namely, they added some new graphics, rebalanced mainly skills and items to work with the new game mode, and created a brand new custom passive skill tree that very much changes how you min-max your build. Now, the problem is, you can't actually play Royale right now. Other than the fact that it's PC only, Grinding Gear Games has locked away Royale until it comes back every weekend, until they decide to shut it down permanently. Why? I guess it's to entice people to play the actual game more, or because GGG worries that having the game always available will have people not suffer from a fear of missing out, leading to less people in the realm, which I guess that kind of makes sense, but I'm not happy about it. Let's just give people a game they want to play, but you can only play on weekends. Hee, where's my Black Lotus? Although in the opening weekend, I ended up changing realms to California so I can find a game with more players, even though it was at the cost of more lag. But as a whole, Path of Exile Royale is extremely fun. The ride you get from finding items and then very quickly figuring out what you can do to make it all work isn't unparalleled, but it's a great way to incite a mix of panic and thinking like you're playing chess 4 moves ahead. Running around, finding loot, and killing mobs so you can spec out your character and be able to fight with your strategy is a great experience, and I'm surprised that there's no competition in this market. This is compounded by the fact that Royale doesn't reward being able to click on an enemy as a central reason for victory. It doesn't reward you for being able to violently spam your keyboard or be able to click on a player or mob better than anyone else. Given me versus another player, so long as they have no idea what they're doing or what they should have been focusing on, I will win more than 90% of the time because their game rewards knowledge and planning. At the same time, both the base game and Royale are brutal to new players as the game doesn't hold your hand. It won't tell you if something is explicitly better. It won't tell you how to synergize a skill and fitting gear. It's up to the player to figure out what they have and what's going on and make the most of everything, which in a realm full of other players that also know what the hell they're doing causes problems as the game snowballs your giving situation as it goes on. What Royale suffers from is heavy RNG. Granted, yeah, there's obviously going to be an RNG in a video game centered around randomized loot, but if you happen to be lucky enough to find a good skill like Explosive Arrow in your first crate, you can leave the beach and start farming XP instantly. However, I've had situations where I haven't found anything worthwhile for a solid minute, so by the time I was ready to try and fight the higher level mobs, they'll likely all have been dead by players that did win the RNG bout, which means they have more XP, which means they can have a more fleshed out passive tree than me, which increases their stats further. So if you don't have good items and good mobs at the start, you will be at a statistical disadvantage, which will result in your death more often than not. However, barring that, the game is reasonably well balanced. There are 3 types of builds, ranged, melee, and magic, and all of them have a skill that effectively acts as a meta, but none of the archetypes are less fair than the others. This, in my opinion, is really good, because I've seen and played other ARPGs where it's very obvious that the developers push you to playing a certain game style. The problem is, the skills themselves are unbalanced. Explosive Arrow hits alright, it sets enemies on fire, and after a short bit the resulting arrows explode, causing everything in our radius to get hit. but the damage it deals is also really strong. So 2 arrows on 2 targets leads to 2 explosions, which can easily kill a mob pack, which leads to fast XP. So the fact that it deals 2 strong hits makes it stand out compared to the rest. If you spec to add extra arrows or chain, Explosive Arrow becomes extremely dangerous and hard to dodge. If you also have an item like Quill Rain which doubles your attack speed, it's good. Blight seems weak at first due to its range, but the damage from it multiplies the longer it hits and it continues to hurt enemies even when you're not casting. It's a totally valid strategy to run in, tap it quickly on a pack of mobs, and run away while they die from the damage over time. Players also can't really heal from Blight until the effects wear off, so it's super dangerous there too. Molten Strike was something that people slept on initially because it starts off bad due to it being weaker damage, but as soon as you hit level 3 and get the extra strike, I think it becomes the best clear skill. I don't think it's overpowered, but it's easily one of the best skills to have if you can get the levels necessary in time. At some point you can hit multiple enemies at a time, you get extra range, and every hit produces multiple projectiles that can burn and do extra direct damage to themselves. So it's basically like multiple explosive arrows at the same time, just in a very thin radius. Additionally, you need movement skills. Dash, Flame Dash, Frostblink are all good, but support skills like Leap Slam and Whirling Blades are stupidly powerful. As they are right now, there's no way they're not going to be nerfed, because they don't have a 4-second cooldown. They can do damage and they move you just as fast. The endgame usually ends up being 2 Whirling Blades chasing each other or out dodging whatever comes its way, because it's easily the most important skill you can have. I mean, technically both of them are an attack, but their power of a support is just insane. And from there, that's not all you have. There's a bunch of other skills too, and a lot of them are off meta. Now, this isn't everything I tried, but it's what I have footage of. Sweep. It seems like it might be fun, but the damage is really lackluster, and the fact that it needs a 2-handed weapon hurts it a lot because, 2-handed weapons turns out the attack slower than 1-handed weapons. You might have okay clear, but you won't have okay attack speed. Cleave suffers from very similar problems as Sweep, except it has lower clear. I just ended up dropping it, it's not good. Rolling Magma's damage was kinda weak, but it might be able to work well if you have the right supports. Some people manage to make it work, but I don't think it's that fun. Ball Lightning starts off even worse than Molten Strike. It burns through mana with some of the worst damage, but it has reasonable clear. If you want every shot to hit as much as it can, you need to maximize its area of effect and can't let it move faster, which means it's really easy to just walk around it. It's one of the few skills that I think could work, but it needs so much going for it. I can get to endgame with it, just not win. Frostbolt is similar to Ball Lightning. I think it can work, especially since it does decent damage and can freeze enemies in place, but it's even slower and doesn't have as much area as Ball Lightning. It's possible that you can win with it, but it's way too slow for me. Elemental hits. It's not quite as strong as other skills, but it's in a reasonable spot the way it is right now. With a few good items, it can do good damage, but I've never had it take off right. I can easily see someone winning with this, but they gotta get reasonably lucky. Cobra Lash starts off being terrible, but gets to be really good at clear speed when the gem becomes level 3, which is problematic since by the time you get that far, others will have either killed you or killed the mobs you desperately need. It doesn't scale well, and I don't see how it can win. Burning Arrow is a trap. Yeah, Explosive Arrow sets people on fire, goes boom, it's great. Burning Arrow sets people on fire, probably the worst skill gem out there because the damage sucks and it has no clear potential. If you have a choice between Burning Arrow and Explosive Arrow is better in every single way. And Lightning Arrow is the exact opposite of Burning Arrow. If it wasn't for Explosive Arrow, this might be the meta for ranged players because it does good damage, it can shock players leading to more damage on subsequent hits, and it has great clear speed. I didn't quite get as far as this as I wanted to, but it's a definite, yeah, this might work for me. Reap. By itself, it's just okay, but if you have Blight, it's extremely good addition, since you can cause long-range damage over time, and players will move slower when you hit it. But just by itself, it's not worth it. Cyclone. Cyclone sucks initially because the area of effect is low, but it's very fast, constant damage, and if you can get the life gain on hit from claws and your passive working at the same time, you can literally out-heal Blight because of how fast it hits. It's the only skill that I would use to charge a Blight head-on without a doubt, especially if I have faster attack speed. Shock Nova. It sucks. Ground Slam. I mean, it's okay for an early clear, but nothing really works with it that well, so it's just temporary. Spectral Throw. It's a little bit better than Ground Slam in terms of attack speed and range, but its damage overall is worse. It's not good. Heavy Strike. Unbelievably slow and has no clear. Viper Strike is fast, but suffers from the same issue. If I had more time, I'd go and try them out again, but outside of getting footage, I don't see a single good reason why I'd use those skills. And I can totally understand if this isn't the type of game you want to play. I just spent way too long talking about a bunch of skills, and that wasn't even all of them. There's so much more content that I haven't even seen, let alone experimented with. Even in the very short Royale mode, which lasts like 15 minutes tops, it's grindy, it's unforgiving, it's complex. You still need to understand how the base game works because you can't refer to the wiki, and even though most of the additional content has been stripped out, your possibilities remain overwhelming. But then, why didn't I try everything? Well, given many possibilities, some explicitly better than others, it's very possible to overlook things when you want to focus on a specific ability in your run. Like, let's say that I get Ball Lightning, Reap, Blight. I like playing with those skills, so I'm going to end up doing a magic build. I'm going to start ignoring melee skills, I'm going to start ignoring range skills, and maybe I'll overlook a really good possibility that I would have had. Because it's hard to figure out whether or not action A or B or all the way to K is better given your circumstances. Or maybe it might be worth waiting until a better situation arises so you're not locked into something that'll likely result in your death. So maybe I'll try Cold Snap and Divine Iron, Freezing Pulse, and Viper Strike properly, but if I saw a better skill, I grabbed it instead because I was trying to win. It's very easy to make a bad choice and have that be your downfall, especially in an environment as tense as this. So maybe I'll do a follow-up where I talk about Royale more, but the way this is, I think this video might be good. Interestingly enough, I've played this mode for a good 15 hours so far, and I'm still not sure what I should be focusing on. Like, how important are resists in this? What about damage rings? Should I have been focusing on energy, shield, or life? What about status ailments? Well, bleed is a bitch to deal with, but speccing to it takes a lot of dedication, and chance to bleed lowers my DPS otherwise. Is it worth it? Plus, even though the core game gets updates every 3 months, such as Friday this video comes out, I'm sitting here thinking how much of an effect Royale will have on the game, what its future is going to look like, or for how long it'll even be around this time. And this is really important because the patch notes for the new expansion just came out literally yesterday. Yeah, I'm making this episode the exact day it goes live. Reading them, I presume mana is going to be even more of an issue in Royale because all of the mana multipliers are increasing. Now, okay, technically Royale uses their own custom skill gems for everything, but the multipliers matched. How would that play in? Are they going to be changed, or are they going to be the same as they are now? Would this mean that skills with support are going to be worse than Blight in terms of mana cost, since, well, Blight doesn't need any and can be spammed a lot more relatively? Would mana investment need to be more important now? Things like that. Like, I like Path of Exile. I like it enough to have made an adaptation of the game to a trading card game format. I strongly recommend the game and just as strongly recommend Path of Exile Royale. However, I have to give it the final score of fastest outdated review because I know something is going to change. Path of Exile doesn't stay the same forever, and I bet that this video is going to be outdated faster than the shortcut divination card. Oh shoot, I forgot to talk about the music. Okay, so the music to Path of Exile normally was really good, but then after a lot of credible suspicion of plagiarism by the original musician popped up, he was quickly ousted and the other composer Camille created new tracks to replace the old stuff. I feel like Camille doesn't introduce memorable melodies as much as he should, and I know he can, but that's not what's important. The music used in Royale is a single track out of over 100 written for the game, not counting anything by the original musician. And more specifically, it's the Riverways track, and while I think it's far from the worst choice, come on. Sarn Arena, Warden's Quarters, Grand Arena, Israel's Labyrinth, a custom track, Well, that's the biggest thing I want. I just want an epic that makes me feel like it's truly a Royale. So yeah, Path of Exile Royale. As much as I respect how much freedom it offers, it's still got a few dents in the execution that need to be cleaned up. I think this mode has room to grow. It's got a good future.